So, yeah, the Turians have a bomb on Tuchanka. This is not as foolish as you might think.
The entire situation is revealed to us when we track down Victus' son, who he had asked to go and find the thing, only to be shut down in the war zone by the Reapers and us needing to rescue his metallic bird ass, alongside the rest of his troops. The dude, like his father, is a bit of an esoteric thinker and values his men over taking risks to complete his mission, which in this case backfired when he tried to take a safe route. Anyways, the bomb. Cerberus has it.
And again I ask, why? Moreover, much like with Surkesh, how? This has been classified to the highest levels of the Turian hierarchy, and again, Cerberus does not have insurgents amongst the Turians due to the whole xenophobe thing. If they found and armed it on their own, necessitating the mission, that would be one thing. But the implication is they knew it was here. And much like with Surkesh, again, why do they gain by doing this? How does it advance their goals?
Well, after we get Victus out, we're properly briefed on the bomb. In the wake of the Krogan rebellion, it was set up as an emergency deterrent in the event they were responsible for another uprising.
Brutal, but it makes a certain kind of sense. Put the Krogan down hard if they tried anything.
It's pragmatic and morally bankrupt, yes, but much like the Genophage, at that specific time, it was a necessary and emergency means of quelling further conflict, which later came to be seen as obsolete. Much like our military now considers landmines due to the abandoned ones causing more civilian fatalities than military ones. I can totally understand why the Turians placed it there, and why now Victus was trying to get rid of it as a show of good faith to the need of Krogan assistance in helping his home. So why is it the story-driven Paragon prompt condemning all of this? It's the Renegade prompt that is the calm, objective, understanding one. Hell, the canon to the automated dialogue version is outright hypocritical, considering we murdered the population of a planet!
Especially since they were trying to remove it, doing the right thing instead of leaving it as a backup plan in the case the genophage cure leads to them becoming a warmongering race all over again. They didn't need to get rid of such a backup at all. Hell, leaving it here for over 1,000 years says something to the ethical standards the Turians hold themselves to. Cerberus didn't prompt them. They were doing it all on their own. So why is Cerberus here as the enemy we're fighting when the Reapers are already assaulting Tuchanka and could just as easily be here attacking just anything that moves which might prevent us disabling this thing? Hell, it might allow them to show some level of intelligence in breaking resistance on the world by trying to set it off themselves.
At least if you ignored their mission statement of indoctrinate and harvest the peoples of the galaxy for their own good, which most of this game does in its execution of the war plot.
We defend Victus' kid as he works to undo Cerberus' tampering, but unfortunately he doesn't have the time to completely shut it down the easy way, leaving him the only option of climbing on top of the thing to remove the triggering mechanism manually, and for his people, for his home, and for those that Krogan can save by gaining their allegiance, gives his life to prevent the bomb from going off.
He never hesitated. Whatever he was before, he'll be remembered for this.
Rex, of course, is not pleased to learn about this, nor really understanding why they continued to lie about it, but by reminding him of the personal cost Victus suffered in preventing an atrocity, Rex is willing to back down. And while Victus is pushing back his feelings for now, there's something telling in how he speaks after this that he's just waiting for his chance to be able to mourn. As a break from the horrors of war, Liara shows us the time capsule she's making to seed on potential developing worlds in the event we screw this up. Her knowledge as an archaeologist making these things far more user and species friendly than the Protean beacons, so anyone that finds one would understand the dangers out there from the Reapers from the outset.
You know, from the arrogance we later see of Javik, his DLC took forever to work right, it's amazing there was any way for them to give any form of warning or allowed lesser races to access their equipment in the first place.
But yeah, hers is a record of everything she can give about the war and its beginnings, and everything of this iteration of the cycle. But she wants our input in how to describe us in it. And frankly, we're just a man. We made mistakes, we helped where we could. who may be the one who's held strongest against the Reapers, but as this game repeatedly likes to emphasize in its narrative, we're a nobody just in the right place at the right time.
This is where I ended up playing through and then needing to repeat a significant portion of the game as that storyline cutoff point for Tachanka, where a bunch of quests become uncompletable. Yeah, I didn't know about it beforehand. Thus, I lost about 10 hours of playtime having to restart from scratch to be able to do the missions I lost the ability to complete. I ended up doing this twice more later when I tried to get to spawn the other ME2 flag events.
Especially as a chunk of them require a return trip to the Citadel, not just for the ones actively had been given, but the seeds for later ones, such as encountering Miranda at the dock, who tells of her sister going missing and being too busy with that to provide any help. And as she's chasing dead ends, we can't help her right now either. Though she's pretty certain her father is involved, she's lost the protection of Cerberus when she left with the rest of us. The Presidium's opened up a bit from the last visit, allowing us to now seek out a bunch of the merchant shops for new gear and ammo mods, which cost less than buying them on Normandy. Though, now at least we can get some downtime in the Eternal Nightclub Purgatory. Run by Arya?
Okay, don't get me wrong. Arya is awesome, one of the breakout secondary characters of the second game, and I like seeing her here without having to go out of our way to Omega.
Plus, of the gathered voice actors, it's ironically Carrie-Anne, emotionless deadpan Trinity, Moss, that is on the short list of such who actually succeed in acting in this game, and show some level of emotion or expression. Seriously, Mass Effect 3 has some of the worst acting on a cast-wide level I've seen in a game that isn't the Fabula Nova Crystallis. And it's those who were flat in the preceding games like Carrie-Anne Moss and Male Shep Mark Meir that have far better performances than everyone else.
Hell, Jennifer Hale, who most people prefer as the voice of Shepard in the past games due to being more expressive and emotive than Mark Meir, in my opinion has the absolute worst performance of the game when you go through it with FemShep. It's like she entirely phoned in her performance. But to get back on topic, I'm just wondering, what the hell is Arya even doing here?
Well, it turns out Cerberus attacked Omega, took out the defenses, and claimed the station, ousting her from it.
How? And for what Oh, wait, right. Omega was originally an Ezo mining facility. But that's the only thing of... Oh, wait, yeah, proximity to Omega-4 so they can recover anything that hasn't been sucked into the black hole after we blew up the base. Those reasons are never cited for why they did it, and it's implied by Arya, not having gone through immigration, that she's not been here long. So they did this after the Reaper invasion started, so anything they would have needed to drag out of Omega-4 in the 6 months after we destroyed the base would have already been done. And if it wasn't, then there's just another plot hole in how they could just use Reaper tech for all their bullshit.
And I think the resources they wasted in claiming and holding the station could have gone towards their actual goals. Hell, them having all of these forces and private armies is ridiculous, when you remember in the first game all they had was a series of lightly manned experimentation outposts, infiltrators, and assassins. And the second game still had their cells scattered and using inordinate amounts of funds, attempting to secure their magic bullet in secret. They don't have what's needed to be an enormous paramilitary terrorist organization as keeps being presented. One whose military strength would need to, on its own, be as vast as any of the other military powers to pull all the crap they do.
And why is it so ludicrous? Because if they had all that, then them contracting us for the anti-collector crap last game becomes completely unnecessary, as they could have just amassed their forces and done it all themselves. The upgrades the Normandy got to survive against their ship are things anyone could have gotten. They clearly copied the Reaper IFF to get back through the Omega-4 relay.
Hell, if everyone leaves the base intact, that's what they're shown doing.
And thus cuts out the middleman of us interfering with their operations, as they've obviously been hiring anyone they can get their hands on who will do what they want, which we won't do. Thus, by making Cerberus so powerful now, even before you factor in the number of their recruits they indoctrinate into total loyalty, it removes the agency and purpose of the last game by making our entire quest from it something that could have had anyone do. Why do you hate Mass Effect 2, Mac Walters?
Anyways, yeah, Arya's aiming to get even. But to do that, she needs to gather forces for the counterattack, which we can provide her by dealing with the heads of the Eclipse, Blue Suns, and Blood Pact to bring the 3 great mercenaries of the Terminus to heal, which she will then dedicate to our efforts alongside the resources at Omega, which is a pretty good deal, all things considered. Downright element of generosity for Arya. Only, it requires getting the lunatic Jonas Sedaris out of prison, but as said, Jonas Sedaris is a lunatic, and it wouldn't do anyone, even Arya, any good to let her go free. However, we can find the interim Eclipse head, Sane, in the refugee bunker, who can be convinced to take over full-time for Jonah, because with Jonah being insane, he's actually been running the Mercs for a very, very long time, but has been terrified of his boss. With some renegade talking, he'll take care of Jonah for everyone if we release her. The Eclipse are more stable, Sane gets a promotion, Arya's happy, and she is out of Commander Bailey's hair, since he is now in charge of the police of the entire Citadel thanks to Adina pulling favors. In other words,
So you die, Captain. And we all move up in rank.
the Blood Pack are easy acquisitions. Just help Arya's contact assassinate the current leader by pretending to be a beaten prisoner before the double cross. The Blue Suns are, however, the most problematic, in that they need the Tyrians that are obstructing their activities off their backs, but the one doing that is General Oraka, who we met and helped in ME1, who is gunning for them because they're raiding weapon shipments headed for the front lines, and Oraka can't secure alternative shipments from the Citadel's black market, which is something we then need to clear up by securing the dealer rare weapons from a probed planet. And Arya is not unappreciative of this.
I think I'm going to employ violence. I'm gonna slap Omega right out of the elusive man's greedy little hands.
An event we will get to later. That DLC I didn't have any problems getting to work.
Outside of Spectre operations, we encounter the only other Spectre we ever meet outside of Nihilus, who's dead, Saren, who we got to commit suicide, and Tella, who we killed.
Yeah, the Spectres don't have a good track record relating to us.
Unlike everyone else, with the exception of Nihilus obviously, Jondam Bao is a good guy, and saw our earlier warnings as things warranting caution and consideration, and is now on the trail of a Hanar he believes to be indoctrinated and helping the Reapers by sabotaging defenses against them. Something he was tipped off to by someone he's been after for years. Katsumi Goto.
Goto-chan, nice!
The two have been in a long cat-and-mouse game, so they know each other very well. That's why Katsumi trusted him with the information. And she is also here assisting us in the investigation. As that information tied up in Keiji's gray box, it was to an Alliance Black Ops raid on a Batarian research facility, which proved to be the key piece in connecting the Hanar to this, since the Batarians have shown themselves in the war to be pretty much wiped out due to widespread indoctrination and cyberforming.
No, wait, sorry, they don't. This is only revealed if you happen to encounter Balak later in the game, presuming you let him live after he tried to crash an asteroid into a colony world in the Bring Down the Sky DLC from Mass Effect 1. Okay, it's probably in the data logs, but you know people don't read those things that often, and such is a poor excuse for not including them narratively. They really should be background lore expansion details, and not where you go to get main story quests answered.
But yeah, Katsumi and I team up with Jondam to use Spectre Authority to look into the relevant Hanar diplomat, which requires a lot of back and forth all over the Citadel. We eventually find our jellyfish, who shows itself to not be indoctrinated, but believes the Reapers are in fact the Enkindlers by way of the indoctrinated Protheans being the servants. In other words...
You big, stupid jellyfish.
You know, I support religious freedom for all species, but that's just crazy.
See? This is what I thought I was going to be dealing with in this game. Had this game been more of these kind of scenes, I wouldn't really have a problem with it. I enjoy this stuff.
It tries to disable Hanar's planetary defenses while we're indisposed with his guards.
Why are his guards attacking us? He just admitted to freely aiding the enemy trying to murder everyone.
Well, regardless, because Katsumi's with us, she prevents him from succeeding while the almighty Spectre Punch fails us. Which...
Oh my god, we just got the hot Japanese ninja killed. Damn you, Mass Effect 3!
You can come out now.
Nah, I'm just screwing with you. She triggered her cloak so Jannam wouldn't arrest her.
Goto-chan, nice!
And we get her to agree to help the Crucible project by acquiring tech they might need for it.
Which is, again, something that actually follows the logical process for aiding the construction of this damn thing, which this game should have been focused on. It just happens so rarely, I feel the need to point it out.
At Huerta, on our way to visit Ash, we find Thane, who's been transferred here because he's in the last stages of Keppel syndrome, spending the time he has left reconnecting with his son, who's also still on the Citadel. He doesn't have much time left, but we'll see him again. Ash, on the other hand, appears to be making a deal with Udina, who is unilaterally appointing her a Spectre on his own authority.
Wow. Remember when becoming one was a long, drawn-out process of judging one's entire career to even be considered? Guess that's what happens when your council rep facilitates cronyism.
Speaking of, why the hell is Udina now the Citadel Council representative of humanity? That, in no way, shape, or form, is ever explained in the story, and from presumption is just something auto-defaulted to. Once again assuming players chose that option, aka the stupid option, in Mass Effect 1, once more removing agency by denying the choices we made before as ever having happened or mattered. Anyways, yeah, even now Ash continues to be obstinate and not really trusting of our words. With all that done, it's back to Tuchanka to cure the Krogans. Only for a Reaper to be there and barring our path.
Though for once this makes sense. It's out down in front of a legitimate assault target, since the Shroud is one of the few things on the planet that isn't already a ruin, and is helping the inhabitants, which depriving them of will make them helpless during the indoctrination and harvesting process.
New form of Reaper, Shepard, using Shroud to poison Tuchanka's atmosphere. Problematic.
And it shoots itself in the foot.
What likewise shoots itself in the foot and kills any goodwill I had towards the Solarians is Lenron contacting us and giving us an ultimatum which will decide whether they give any support or just leave the galaxy to burn. She insists we sabotage the cure, or rather, prevent Mordin from recognizing and correcting existing establishments to prevent this very thing, leaving the Krogans none the wiser until after everything has been settled and the war is over.
Are you seriously? That's fucking stupid. By doing that, you would provoke the war you're trying to head off from even happening, likely at a time when any survivors would be critically weakened. Now, sure, the genophage only reduces the Krogan birth and survival rate down to that of other species. It's the lack of unity and culture which has left them a broken power that other races have used to their own ends for centuries. But under Rex, that is all changing, and he's unifying them. So all that would come from such a betrayal is them executing a suicide campaign against the Solarians to make sure they die first. And they would finger the Solarians for this, since Mordin's the one responsible for the cure, and the Turians wouldn't do something like that to someone they'd consider an ally.
Honestly, I'm against this on wholly moral and ethical grounds. So, screw the Solarians' technological war assets. They pale in comparison to what comes from the Quarians and Geth with regards to engineering and sheer data analysis, which are more needed in the Crucible's construction. So as the mission begins, I try to warn Rex, repeatedly. Only for many of the prompts that have me try be constantly interrupted before I can spell.
It's almost as if the game doesn't want me to warn my friend and ally of a political double-cross which would cripple his people if they did indeed become involved in the war without a way to replace their losses. Imagine that!
And yeah, he is not happy. Once we finally tell him, hey look, someone was finally smart enough and actually kept a record of a conversation for the first time in the damn series when this would have been really useful in the past. Especially as happens after we see the full might of the Krogan clans gathered to back us in a diversion, so we can get to the Shroud, which is the continuing unification of the Krogan's people. However, approach to the Shroud is complicated from fire of the Destroyer-class Reaper, forcing us to divert down some ruins, which show the culture of the Krogan people that was lost amidst their personal wars, and then forgotten when the Solarians uplifted them to use their savagery to their own gain. This is the evidence of the people they were millennia ago, and soon can be again.
Though birth control would probably be something wise to invest in at some point, considering the rate of how fast the population of Krogans can grow when unimpeded by the genophage. I don't know, maybe this cure just removes the stipulations from it about stillbirths and reduces the rate of reproduction cycle for the species, which would be a more moderate solution. Especially considering Morden's prior work on it was about making sure the birth rate was kept at 1 in 1,000. And Malon's work was originally based on concocting his cure from other species mating principles, or some other such crap. The big thing that was horrifying wasn't the population control, but how that population control was achieved by leaving even those conceived to more than likely die before they were even born.
Fortunately, it looks like we might be getting some help on our attempt at the tower, for this area is also the stomping ground of Calros, queen and progenitor of all Thresher Maws.
And it really should say something about how screwed we are to consider a Thresher Maw a good thing.
This is Bakara's idea, actually, to use the ground pounders introduced last game to make with the Uber Graboid summoning in order to get Calros to attack and kill the Reaper.
Gee, it's almost as if these things are not that hard to get rid of, so the fleets of the galaxy should not have that big a problem with them. It's almost as if the Reapers should be weak without their strategy for their galactic conquests being of divide and conquer.
Then again, as said, this was a Destroyer-class Reaper, so it's the weakest class of Reaper. But still. Unfortunately, the Shroud has been severely damaged, and though while the cure is ready to be dispersed, the place is falling apart, and the sabotage has yet to be dealt with.
No other option. Not coming back. Suggest you get clear. Explosion's likely to be problematic.
Mort, no!
Shepard, please. Need to do this. My project, my work, my cure. My responsibility.
I'm sorry.
I'm not. Had to be me. Someone else might have gotten it wrong.
I am the very model of a scientist Solarian. I've studied species Turian, Asari, and Batarian. I'm quite good at genetics as a subset of biology because I am an expert which I know as psychology. My genus science studies range from urban to agrarian.
Classic bypass. Standard failsafes. Excellent. Yes. Genophage cured. Krogan free. New beginning. For all of us.
Goodbye, Morden. Rex reminisces on how the journey to all this started with him killing his father, but now that he's achieved everything he's ever dreamed of, it's just a passing milestone of a waning era. Also, they're going to name their firstborn after Morden.
Well, it's better than the masses of people who at the end of this are going to name their kid Shepard. I mean, who would name their kid after someone whose job is to herd sheep? Oh, now I get it!
But yeah, we have the total loyalty for the Krogans, and they will be ready to back up the Turians as soon as they can get troop transports to the planet. And with that, we also have the Turians backing us once their front frees itself up. As we leave Tuchanka and work through mourning Morden, we receive a communique from the Solarian counselor, Ashel, who immediately gains my interest and sympathy to whatever she wants by insulting her predecessor Valerne and showing her contempt for his conduct on the council, which left the races as weak with the infighting they precipitated.
Really, it's 3 for 3 on that with these counselors being better than the originals. And while Tevos was more of a mediating diplomat than Orisa at least isn't deceptive about her motivations, as Tevos prioritized the welfare of the Asari over every other concern and hid that being her motivation. If it wasn't for her, the last council would have been far more dysfunctional. To me, it more validates my decision in storyline about leaving them to die and focusing everything on shutting down Nazara over rescuing politicians who should not have been on the front lines in the first place.
Anyways, Ishel has concerns over Udina, who on top of using council authority to reassign half the Citadel staff to prioritize human workers, just made some huge monetary actions that are showing themselves as highly suspicious, asking we come in to investigate. Unfortunately, after we raided Cerberus base on Novaria of all places, we returned to the Citadel to find it under assault by Cerberus.
Okay, no. Just... no. That thing is 45 kilometers long and has a population of 13 million. That's the entire population of Illinois, the state I currently live in, plus my hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, stuffed into roughly the area of Chicago, the city I currently live in. Do you know how many officers, to not even say how many military agents, would be on that station in a time of war to keep the peace in such a place? They don't have the resources nor motivation for this invasion, let alone to keep the station. This is that nonsense with Omega all over again, as Omega is the same size as the Citadel. But at the very least, Omega does not have a standing military.
And they're legitimately trying to claim the station with a surgical strike force, without any backup or means of distracting the defense force. For fuck's sake, that was Saren's entire plan in the first game, because he knew attempting an upfront attack was doomed to failure. And guess what? He only succeeded because he had a Reaper and the entire Heretic Death Armada backing him up. Whereas here, we don't even need to do anything. C-Sec mops up all the Cerberus forces without our involvement.
In their defense, this reinforces what I said before about Cerberus being an incompetent organization and how they think this will work. It's actually consistent with their older modus operandi and how their badly thought out stunts get all their forces killed. But it makes everyone else look more foolish as they keep one-upping pretty much everyone else in the game.
If this was Cerberus' entire standing army making the assault instead of just a supported strike force that's, well, hitting everywhere, that would be more logical than the reality we keep experiencing with them. You know, make such a bit their claim to fame, which actually deals with most of their threats in one fell swoop to clean them from the board to focus on the actual threat. But once again, they have zero reason to actually do this plot now.
Here's the thing about Priority Citadel, which makes it so problematic. It's set too early.
If set after the events of Thessia, that changes and this siege to claim the Citadel becomes understandable in the context of their scheme to control the Reapers, as this is where the fucking space baby is, which is learned from material on Thessia. Setting and then stopping that attack after this later builds understanding when we learn that.
But because the storyline leaves us on the rails the entire time, that context to this never applies.
Thane is our inside man in all of this. Yes, the man dying from asphyxiation is out fighting and outwitting Cerberus agents and got Ash out of the hospital. She then proceeded to spit on his goodwill and the lives of everyone else to go and protect the Council in the name of her promotion. Supposedly Cerberus can hold the station just from C-Sec HQ, and considering they are cops, that is a really bad idea. Especially since they never seal the station off in any way.
Actually, the entire plan of attack is ridiculously stupid, and obvious for the actually revealed reason.
We rescue Bailey once we're inside, his access granting us view into Cerberus' activities, which is just kill people. Specifically, they are after the Council, and Ishel is in the building as she brought her evidence against Udina to the Executor so they can have his ass arrested. Unfortunately, the Executor is dead, and Ishel is under attack by...
Who the fuck are you?
3-on-1, pal. It's over.
No, it's fun.
Wait, I know that voice. Where do I know that voice from? Why do I know that voice?
Since when have heroes ever needed plans?
I will end you!
Yeah. This is Kai Lang, and his mission here is to assassinate the Council.
That just raises further questions!
As Ishel reveals, this is all a power play from Udina to usurp control of the entire galaxy into human hands. Revealed later by him to force all the Citadel races to take everything from their own campaigns, abandon their races and peoples, to go rescue Earth. Please.
I don't even really want to touch Udina's role in all of this that facilitated the attack. I pegged him as this kind of self-destructive, short-sighted, narcissistic twat from the first game, in isolation of any other content I would have seen for this series. So, doing that is all consistent with his character, with his own views of human supremacy, that Cerberus could have easily played into and then used him as a pawn. If they were actually an intelligent organization, or this was alluded to in any way before this in this game. Which it wasn't. But let's go over the ways this is now stupid from that revelation. 1. Cerberus has done assassinations before without revealing their presence for an assortment of political reasons. Admiral Kahoku comes to mind. So this attack for those reasons is unneeded. 2. Cerberus forces did not draw C-Sec away from their targets, so they could be dealt with swiftly and subtly. You in fact caused more defenses to be drawn to them.
But then again, we wouldn't have had an action-packed attempt to avert an assassination and catch the culprit like, say, Thane and Garrus's mission's last game, which pulled this off without being stupid.
3. The Council positions do not work that way. As has already been shown, they're not the heads of state. They're specialized ambassadors dealing with galactic concerns, representative of the greater powers of their jurisdiction, alongside general policy towards the Citadel race. That is why they couldn't give us any military assets at the beginning of the fucking game, as aside from the Citadel's defense force, they had no control over that! Kill them, and you lose all diplomatic channels to help their related races, which cuts them off from helping Earth. And thus, 4. Cerberus doing this all so obviously hurts that endgame goal of raising humanity above the other powers by making the other races want to turn on humanity, which entirely sabotages trying to save humanity from the Reapers in the first place.
Hell, they're not even doing that correctly either, as they're not even attacking military targets outside of C-Sec. They're just going and sowing general chaos on buildings and in the streets. It's as if the Islamic State went and attacked the Mall of America. How would that in any way further their goal? As presented, it shows us cartoonish twists that are meant to baffle their viewers with bullshit.
And then there's Kai Lang, who proceeds to wreck all of our asses, which shows they didn't need this. At all.
Kai Lang himself is a walking ball of crazy, plot hole, and Marty stew through his appearances as it is. Just entering and wrecking everyone's shit through narrative contrivance, but without really justifying any of it at any time.
Mainly because he has never given any backstory expansionary details aside from, he's a total badass, worship him! At least in Mass Effect 3's own narrative. In the game's side content comics, they at least give us something, but the main problem of that is, you didn't put it in the material where the character actually mattered.
Now, I admittedly gave Jack Harper slack over this in Mass Effect 2, as he does enter the picture in a similar manner to Lang, out of nowhere. But the context to his use is legitimately different, and how ME2's dialogue wheels exposit and flesh out his character, motivations, and actions into someone we disagree with on a fundamental level, but can agree to collaborate with towards the collector threat, since it does help people, and progress the overarching story of dealing with the Reapers and seeking to save the galaxy from their threat. There was enough material there for him to be three-dimensional, which the graphic novels that told his, Saren, and Anderson's backstories merely expanded upon to give us what set him on his path, and why he would want to save humanity at any possible costs.
But that doesn't happen with any of the material featuring Lang, as it's just more assassination mission crap and god modding with him always being in the background and influencing events with his actions. none of which ring true.
Especially with how he straight up outpowers everyone with curb stomp tactics until our final encounter with him, where it is instead us that perform that curb stomp, which is just so uneven and unexpected with someone that is nothing but a stealth assassin, and a bad one at that. The dude is a creator's pet no one wanted, and he was vastly unneeded in an already crowded story that doesn't even give enough time to validate his existence.
Hell, they do this better, with less dialogue and screen time, with the villain of the Citadel DLC, which is made all the more awful in comparison when, well, Thane enters the picture.
And once again, to show by proxy both Cerberus' ineptness and also our story-driven incompetence, Thane, a man who is dying from asphyxiation, intercedes, kicks Lang's ass and saves the shell, but in the struggle, where we do absolutely nothing to help Thane is stabbed through the lung. Lang gets away, with us following after him, and Bailey getting the word out that all this is Udina's fault. Lang then pulls a bunch of bullshit to delay us from getting to the council first, only for us to get to the council first, which Ash is the only defense again. Seriously? Seriously.
You know, a lot of CSEC agents should be standing between any forces and them since, again, you didn't divert attention away from them, but towards them.
This standoff, by the way, is completely and utterly asinine, as it can be completely subverted with the following statement.
Donald Udina, you're under arrest for the attempted murder of Counselor Shell. Step away from the counselors and place your hands behind your head. See? Not that hard, and subverts the entire Cerberus issue with Ash.
And you know, this could have been interesting had Ash's character not been entirely assassinated and reduced down to Cerberus, 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 I hate Cerberus. Because this action is reflective of her character, only the worst aspects of such. As she refuses to listen, refuses to believe in her friends, refuses to have faith in anything that isn't an organization, that isn't doctrine, that isn't a body of law. Throughout these games, she refuses to place any trust in people. The people she supposedly loves and knows better than a clandestine order. Thus, when the chips are down, she will side with the mission over the people she should be standing with. And thus, in her ignorant hypocrisy, has sided with the organization she says she despises.
You know, her grandfather was the first human to ever surrender to an alien race, which she claims has been a stigma against her family made by people with heads up their asses. That by the merits and accomplishments, they should have gone farther than they did. And yet, we are never told of any of that. All we know is that the man she says cursed her family made a decision that saved the lives of the people he was charged with safeguarding. He was lambasted as betraying his race. And now, here is Ash doing the same thing they slandered him for doing. Betraying her duty, and is out of ego and pride, refusing to consider anything outside of her own narrow perspective. And thus...
Counselor, get the door.
Damn it, Ash.
Execution.
Goodbye, Ash.
Plague.
Ashley. God damn it, Ash. He was with Cerberus.
So were you.
And thus, as Bailey's men comes to wrap this up, we receive the ultimate irony of Ash Williams. She will be remembered as a hero, even though through her actions, she betrayed everything she stood for, and everyone that actually cared about her.
And you know, had they not pulled the bullshit with her earlier in the game of the writer speaking through the character, I actually might have tried to save her.
Lang's escaped, but at this point we're more concerned with the real hero in all of this, who, due to his condition and the scarcity of compatible drill blood on the Citadel, doesn't have long left.
That assassin should be embarrassed. A terminally ill Drow managed to stop him from reaching his target.
And together with Kolyat, we see him to his rest.
Goodbye, Thane. You won't be alone long.